Something's coming.
What I want to talk about today, chat, what I want to do is a scene by scene breakdown, chat, a spoiler review for 10 Cloverfield Lane, the sequel, spiritual successor to 2008's Cloverfield, directed by Dan Trachtenberg, who is having a movie coming out very soon, chat. Prey, which I'm eagerly looking forward to, which is a prequel sequel to the original Predator. For those of you who don't know, I am a huge Dan Trachtenberg fan. 10 Cloverfield Lane is one of my favorite movies from the previous decade, chat. I probably like it more than most people. I mean, it did relatively, it did. Commercially, it was very successful, and it was praised by critics. It was a little divisive among audiences. Some people didn't like that it wasn't a giant kaiju movie, but as I've always viewed it, chat, one of the aspects of this film that I love so much, it's very similar to Max Brooks's World War Z, where it's a small story within a much bigger story, chat. And that's what I really like about and appreciate about it. When I was excited for the Cloverfield franchise, I mean, they fucked it up. They stumbled completely with Cloverfield Paradox. I messed that up, chat. And, 10 Cloverfield Lane originally wasn't supposed to be 10 Cloverfield Lane. It wasn't even supposed to be connected to the Cloverfield franchise. It was actually a blacklisted script that was sitting on a shelf that, Hollywood executives said, oh, it's a great idea, but we don't know what to do with it. J.J. Abrams and company came along. It's like, we know what to do with it, but we're going to make it a part of our franchise. They brought in Dan Trachtenberg, chat. They have an incredible cast of actors in this. John Goodman, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, John Gallagher. Bradley Cooper is in it, and I bet we talk about Bradley Cooper's not in it. Yes, he is, chat, and I'll tell you exactly who he is in just a bit, but I'm a really big fan of this movie. One of the things I love about this movie that makes it stand out. This kind of does circumvent audience. This is the best way to subvert audience expectations. And the whole tagline for this movie is monsters come in many forms. And where, yes, you can have a giant fucking kaiju, you can have a biomechanical monstrosity that sprays fart gas and melts people, sure. But sometimes the most interesting monster is a guy who says he saves you and keeps you in his bunker and is telling you things that may not be true. That's what I love about this movie. It's so many great ideas. It's this kind of movie, like when I think about like filmmaking, and if I ever wanted to be like a filmmaker or write scripts or screenplays or be involved in the filmmaking process, because I love genre content, but I'm a little intimidated by like giant, grand, operatic, genre content, chat, like Star Wars or Marvel movie. Not that I love those things, I do. It's just that, like, oh God, to work on something like that must be so intimidating, especially on the filming side. But, writing something like that, I would love that. I would absolutely adore that. But when it comes to directing something, I feel like this is the kind of movie I would love to make. It's something small and intimate, but it relies on this great tension and the big personalities of its actors and its characters. You're dealing with a small cast, and so you have, I think, even a better connection with them, and you have a single environment that you work in that has so much personality, chat. Every part of it just feels so well thought out, and it's the kind of movie like this film, or like why I like a lot of for example, why I'm such a big fan of Michael Flanagan's like Hush. It all takes place in one environment, or other movies that are kind of similar to this, like Misery. I love that film, the Stephen King adaptation of Misery by Rob Reiner, where you have these two people and it takes place in this woman's house. Stuff like that just really, really gets me. And it makes me go like, God, I want to make something like that. I want to direct something like that someday. It would be really, really, really cool. And that's why one of the reasons why I have such a great appreciation for this film. And I just feel like it's one of those cool genre-bending thrillers that does so much with so little, and that's why I have such a great love for this movie. But, chat, we got to go ahead and start at the top. We see a young woman, chat, and she is not happy, all right? She's had a really bad day. She lives in New Orleans, and it's probably like fucking hot. It's very sweaty, very moist, chat, all the time there. Probably lives on fucking Bourbon Street, wherever the hell that street's called, chat. Probably just smells like alcohol and vomit. And she's like, I've had enough, all right? I gotta get going, chat. But we learn that she had apparently an argument with her boyfriend, and Michelle, played by Mary Elizabeth Winstead, she's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here, okay? But she does have the wherewithal to go like, you know what, I'm gonna call him and let him know that I'm just gonna leave. I don't want to deal with him. What's so cool about this scene is it's kind of similar to, we talk about Primal before I started my review, and you have music play under it, play over it, but you have no dialogue, but you instantly know what's going on. Mary Elizabeth Winstead's body language is fantastic. And the way in which she's moving around the room frantically is fantastic. We've all had this kind of moment of panic, this existential crisis. I feel like she's doing a great job here, where she's clearly talking to someone I think named Ben Chat, and she leaves a message for him, but she seems very frustrated and very insecure. She hangs up. She's grabbing all these things off. We get a sense of like, okay, what her life is like. She's clearly an artist of some sort, possibly a fashion designer. You know, she has all these drawings of clothes and models and things. And, you know, she grabs a few items. She grabs this giant fucking bottle of whiskey, chat. And it looks like a fine brand, too. Like $100 bottle right there. And before she leaves, chat, she takes off her wedding ring and puts it right on the table, chat. And eventually leaves. Eventually, she stops and she goes to a gas station, chat, where they're selling slushos or whatever the hell it is, which apparently like slusho or Slurpee, whatever. It's like slusho Slurpees. It's this thing that J.J. Abrams often puts in like a lot of his films. And it's like this is a little thing that's kind of connects all my movies. Like little fun visual cue. It's like, it's kind of nice. But she stops there, chat. She's filling up her car with gasoline, like guzzling. Notices a truck over there just kind of sitting there, and there's some guy in it. But she's like, oh, whatever. I can't pay attention to that. I got too much in my mind. She fills up the thing, goes back on the road. Also, chat, beforehand, we noticed that in her apartment, because she was so frantically doing things, there's like these weird vibrations. There's these weird vibrations, almost like little mini earthquakes, but she doesn't pay any mind to it. But in any case, you know, she's in her car, she's driving, she's still obviously upset. Turns on the radio, talking about there's massive power outages all across, rolling blackouts all across the eastern seaboard and the southern seaboard of the United States. Various electrical grids are struggling to get back, online. They don't really understand what's going on, chat. But then, little ring-a-ding-ding. Her boyfriend is calling her, chat, good old Benny. And she's like, no. But he calls, leaves a message. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna listen to the message. Goes ahead, does it. Lets it play. And it's Bradley Cooper, Chad. Her fucking boyfriend, Ben, is Bradley Cooper. Her recorded voice lines for the movie. And he's like, Michelle, listen, we all get in the fight sometimes, okay? It happens to all couples. You just can't abscond with everything. You can't just leave, all right? Just come back. Let's talk about this, okay? I have so much thoughts and feelings that I want to tell you, all right? I need to see you. Anyway, call me, bye. But she doesn't want to call. And then he calls again, but she's like, I don't know what to do, and she's about to press the button, then boom, she is sideswiped by a truck, Chad. She's like, and her car fucking careens over the edge, goes through the guardrails, Chad, flips multiple times, and then stops in this fucking ditch. Then, Chad, we cut, and Michelle comes to. She finds herself in looks like a concrete-esque room, appears to be a basement, chat. The left side of her head is bleeding, probably where she struck the window. And as she tries to move, she's a little groggy, chat. She notices that there is an IV bag in a stand, and she looks down at her arm, and it's inside her. She's like, what the fuck? She rips that shit out, which that always freaks me out. Always freaks me out when they rip that out in movies. It's like, oh, God, be careful, because I don't want them to break the needle inside your arm or something, chat. And she sees her stuff, like, over there. She sees some of her clothes and her handbag and her cell phone. And she's like, God, get the phone. And she goes to get it, chat, but she can't move. And she realizes, she looks down, and she has a blanket over, and she throws the blanket off, and her one leg is all fucked up and gnarly looking now, and it has, like, this leather brace on it. And it's also handcuffed to a pipe in the basement. She's like, what the fuck? And I love this because we go from like, okay, she's having a fight with her boyfriend. She leaves. And now her situation has gotten even worse, chat. She's literally locked in a basement, not knowing where the hell she is. And she's like, and she's like struggling, chat, to get the thing off to no avail. And she's like, all right, okay. I got to think about this. I just have to think. And so she's about to, she grabs the IV stand. She knocks that thing down, and she's trying to She's trying to get at her bag, Chad, trying to get at her bag to get her phone out. Manages to hook it in the purse loop. She takes out the phone, Chad, still got a nice full battery, but it's apparently she's been out for a while because it's got like maybe 25% of the battery left. I remember it was at 99%. Now it's at like 25% at this point, Chad. The thing is, though, no signal. Can't call anybody, Chad. It's like she's obviously deep underground somewhere. But then we hear some movement. We hear some movement from outside. She notices there's large mechanical-looking steel door, and she hears this footsteps, and there's something large coming, Chad. Something large, and he is indeed in charge. And what's behind door number 1? John Goodman. And he's there's like, hello. How are you? She's like, who are you? Where am I? What's going on? And he's like, I'm here to keep you alive. She's like, okay. And he's like, here, you're gonna need these crutches. It's the only way you're gonna be able to get around nowadays. And she's like, well, that's great. Hey, listen, why am I here? Is like, oh, you're in the ditch and I found you there and I had to bring you here. I had to fix you up. You hurt yourself. It was so bad. She's like, well, maybe I should go to a hospital. I feel like I should call my boyfriend. My boyfriend knows that I was going to him. I should let him know. He might be looking for me. And he's like, no one is looking for you. And she's like, oh, and he leaves. And I was like, this is not a good situation. A lot of heavy breathing. Now listen, John Goodman, he's had weight issues throughout his entire life. He's been thin, he's been fat, he's been thin, this is fat John Goodman. This is big boy John Goodman, chat. And I will say, Dan Trachtenberg uses his size very well here because a lot of the times, like how he shoots, I love this. It's from Michelle's perspective, so you're constantly looking up at John Goodman, who looks very intimidating, Chad. The man's like 6'5", probably like 350 pounds right now in this movie, if not more. And you feel intimidated. And when you're injured, too, it's like, oh, this guy could kill me any moment. But she takes the crutches from him, and he just leaves, locks the giant steel door. But at this point, she's like, I gotta find a tool. I gotta find a weapon. I need something to fight against whoever this fucking guy is. And she takes the crutch. She takes the little rubber stopper off. And, oh, that's the other one thing, too. Because he's like, you can get out of your handcuffs. She's like, okay, that's weird. And he throws her the key, and she detaches herself from the cuffs, but still hurts to walk around because of the brace and her fucked up leg. But she uses it to then sharpen the crutch, Chad, until she makes like a spear. Okay, and then she waddles over. She puts her pants on. She's like, God damn it. And John Goodman, he thick boy. He a big thick boy, Chad. He's 6'1", but add like 7.5 inches, Chad, and that's John Goodman in this movie. And so she waddles over like, Jesus Christ. And she's ready. She's ready to fight. She's got the pokey stick, the pokey crutch, and ready to stab John Goodman in the tum-tum, Chad. There's a lot of tum-tums, so she's probably going to hit him. But he's not coming. She's like, I just can't stand here the entire time. Oh, I know. And she goes into her bag where she finds a book of matches, and there's 2 matches left. And she takes some of her bedding that she was sleeping on. She lights that shit on fire, Chad, and then causes, she puts it in this vent. She sees this vent up there, ventilation system, opens it up, shoves that in there, and then all the smoke starts going in, and the alarms start going off. And then eventually, John Goodman, he comes waddling in, opens the door, and she's like, ah! She tries to stab him, Chat, but he grabs the pokey stick, and he takes one big giant bear, arm and wraps it around her. He's like, I'm trying to help you, and then stabs her with morphine. She's like, no. And she fails to escape from the clutches, Chat, the big meat patty hands of John Goodman. Eventually, she comes to, and she wakes up, and who does she see? John Goodman just staring down at her. And he's like, I brought you some breakfast. There's some eggs. There's some oatmeal. There's toast and milk. There's all the things you need to stay healthy down here. And he's like, my name's Howard, by the way. I'm here to help you. And she's like, okay, that's cool. And then he leaves eventually, but he comes back, and she's like, she didn't eat the breakfast. She don't want the goddamn breakfast. And she's like, listen, I need to get out of here. I'll promise you, I won't say anything. And he's like, you're not gonna get out of here, Michelle. And she's like, how do you know my name? He's like,
well, when I brought you here, I admit I looked through your wallet, and, I feel like, I was in the right to do that. And I also managed to get some of your other stuff, okay? And I when I was going home, there's been an attack. You understand? There's been an attack, and I don't know if it's the Russians. I don't know if it's the Martians, but there's been something in the air, and I brought you here. I made sure you're safe, Michelle. You should be grateful for what I did. And she's like, okay. And he's like, and I saw you there, and you crashed, and I think you should show me some appreciation. I think that's what you should do. And then eventually, he's about to leave, and he's like, okay. You can walk around, but I'm gonna keep an eye on you. And so she starts. Oh, that's the thing. Right before he's about to leave, as they're talking about what might be going on, we hear this crash. We hear this crash outside the room, and he's like, "If you'll excuse me," and he gets up and he's like, "What did you do? What did you do?" And it's like, she's like, "God damn!" And eventually she gets up, and she meets Emmett. She meets Emmett, chat, who was played by John Gallagher. He was in another movie I reviewed not too long ago. He played the killer in Hush, chat, and that's the guy who's hunting the deaf woman in that movie. He's here now. He does a great job. And he's kind of like your good old boy. He's like, I don't know about a lot of stuff, but I'm kind of good-natured. And he's eating goldfish. He's like, hi. He's like, oh, geez, how you doing? My name's Emmett. She's like, okay, what are you doing down here? He's like, this guy's like insane. He's like, no, what are you talking about? Didn't he tell you about all the crazy shit that's going on up there? She's like, what? And he's like, he didn't kidnap you? He goes, no, I was fighting to get in. You didn't see it, did you? She's like, wait, what? And then all of a sudden, Howard, I will admit, John Goodman, he's a stealthy son of a bitch despite being 6'8" and weighing 555 pounds. Yeah, but he sneaks up on them. He's like, yeah, he's here too. And he feels really bad about knocking down that shelf of food. Michelle, I'm talking to you. It was a week's worth of food, and he feels really bad about it, does he? He's like, yes, I do, sir. He's like, yeah, okay. Bathroom time. And they're like, what? And so then he waddles forward, and they follow him, chat. And he shows off the common room area. It's like, this is the living and kitchen area. I have many films on both DVD and VHS. You're welcome to watch them, but I ask that you put either the DVD or the VHS tape back in its sleeve. I like order. I have various books and magazines at which you can read. They are in alphabetical order, and I ask that you put them back in the order at which they're on. I have music. I have a jukebox, and you can use the kitchen facilities. Again, I hope you make me aware of what you use. Michelle, come with me. And he's like, all right. And she goes over, and he shows her his personal room, and is like, this is my personal area. You need to ask special permission to be here. You are not allowed in without my permission. There is the bathroom. Michelle, proceed to poop. And she's like, I don't have to go. He's like, but you will have to. You will have to go eventually. Okay? So go ahead and do it. She's like, I can't do it when you're watching. He's like, well, you can use the curtain. And she's like, it's still uncomfortable. He's like, listen, I can't trust you right now. You tried to attack me and you started a fire. I'm doing this for my safety and the safety for that fucking idiot over there. Okay? And she's like, he's like, I'm not like some kind of pervert. Jeez. And she's like, all right. And she does the business, Chad. She poops, she pees, she does everything under the moon. That's what she does, Chad. Okay? Eventually, he then points to like the magazines. Those are Megan's magazines, and she's like, "Oh, who was Megan? Megan was my daughter. She's not with us anymore." And she's like, "I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear that." Show they go 100 days. My heart's pitter patter. And then she's like, "Well, maybe we should contact people from the outside." And John Goodman's like, "You're just not getting it. Why aren't you getting it? Okay? Look at the radio there. There are no signals coming from any various organizations, okay? No police, no medical, no, not military. There's nothing. All right? You're stuck in here, and honestly, you should make the best of it. And I know that you think I'm crazy, but I'm not. I prepared. What you know what's crazy to me, Michelle, and you, whatever your name is, Emmett. What's crazy is people building the ark after the storm has already come. I took the time to prepare. That's what I did. And she's like, okay. And he's like, oh, you still don't believe me? Okay. Well, I think it's time to introduce you to Frank and Mildred. Who's Frank and Mildred, chat? Well, let me tell you. He takes her up all the way to the top of the bomb shelter that he has created, chat. And he's like, I keep this door shut at all times, but I'm going to take you to the most outside door because I want to introduce you to Frank and Mildred. And he opens that door, chat, and they're inside this door, which is very, very, very large, very, very thick hinges, very thick. And he's like, there they are. And it's these two rotting pig carcasses, chat, that looks like their skin has been just melted or burned off. She's like, oh my God, what's happened to them? And he's like, yeah, they're not as lucky as you and me and Emmett. Yeah, they were exposed to the air. It's the air, Michelle. It did that to them. And I'm just trying to help you. That's what I'm trying to do. Eventually, chat, she goes back downstairs and she's in her room. And she hears something overhead. Like when she's in her little space, she hears like a vehicle sometimes. She thinks it like sounds like a truck or something, like a car. And eventually she goes and talks to Emmett about Howard. And Emmett explains that, listen, everyone thinks Howard is crazy. He probably is a little crazy. But, I mean, he prepped for this whole thing. I mean, he's always gone on about, that it being the Ruskies or Martians and things. But I helped him build this place, and I fought my way to get in here. Okay, that's what I did. I was scared. Right when the attack was going down, she's like, "What attack? What'd you see?" It's like it was something I'd never seen before. It wasn't like fireworks. It wasn't like a flash of lightning. It was like this. It was huge. It was red. I didn't know what it was, but all I knew is something was bad. Something was bad, and I went to Howard, and I fought my way in before he closed the door. When I saw you with him as well. He was taking you down into his basement, and and then she's like, well, I heard a car outside. I heard something moving. He's like, that's not possible. It's the air. She's like, well, he's probably fucking lying. He's probably crazy. And then Howard again, John Goodman, 7.5 feet tall, 615 pounds, chat, is somehow stealthy as all hell. Batman, eat your heart out. He waddles in with not them knowing. It's like, it's din-din time. It's like, it's time for din-din, chat. Let's go eat din-din. And so they go into the kitchen, into the table, and it's like, I ask you, when you sit at this table is a family heirloom. So be sure to use either a placemat or coasters, okay? Respect my table. And they're like, all right. And he's like, I've made some food. I wouldn't say I'm a great cook, but I'm not a bad cook either. Here is some spaghetti and bread, and here is some orange soda. And they put that down, and he's like, all right. And he does this weird smile because again, he has no social skills, and so it's incredibly awkward. Everyone's just on edge, and he's like, okay. And then they start eating. And so at this point, this is when Emmett just starts talking. Where he starts eating, he's like, you know what? I have to say, this is the best pasta, this is the best sauce I've ever had in my life. I would say like a fried turd tastes better than death. I mean, I think anything tastes good when the possibility of nuclear fallout and poison air might affect you, right? And so I really appreciate this, Howard. And Howard's like, in hindsight, I agree with you, Emmett, but please watch your dirty language at the table. There is a lady present. And he's like, my apologies. But then Emmett keeps going on, like he notices things like, oh, you have Monopoly.
What? Well, you said we're going to be down here. What did you say, Howard? A year or two down here until the nuclear fallout ends? I bet we can play Monopoly for like a year or two, and we can. It would be awesome. We'll have so much fun. Then Howard's like, "Shut up, shut up!" And they're like, "Whoa!" And he's like, "Listen, just stop talking. Just stop talking. I and Michelle don't appreciate you prattling on and acting rude at the table. All right? I find it very, very annoying, and so does Michelle. Right, Michelle?" And she's like, yeah. And he's like, let's just eat our dinner that I prepared for you in peace. And they keep eating the dinner. But then Michelle notices, like, okay, clearly fucking Howard does not like Emmett. And she's like, there's something, I can use this. And so Michelle starts gaslighting him, where she's like, "Emmett, can you pass me a napkin?" And he's like, and it's like right in front of her. And he's like, "Yeah, sure." He passes her a napkin. John Goodman's like, "Why didn't she ask me to pass her a napkin?" He's very mad about that. And she's like, "Oh, you're so right. Like, I love Monopoly. I love playing Connect 4. And what was that game? What the Trouble, right? Where you press the what was that? The bubble? He's like the Pop-O-Matic. Yeah, the Pop-O-Matic bottle. I love that one. It kind of scared me though. He's like, "Oh yeah." I mean, the one that scared me was the surgery one. She's like, "Oh, the one that goes, bzz, yeah, that sound. Oh, that sound freaked me out." He's like, "Yeah, it freaked me out too. Hey, could you pass me the salt?" And he's like, yeah. Pass her the salt. Howard's like, "Why didn't she ask me to pass her the salt?" And does that. And she's like, "Could you also pass me the pepper?" And Howard's like, "What did you do? What are you doing? Are you trying?" And he gets up. Chad, kicks his chair back. Michelle, she instantly stands up and goes to the wall. And he's like, "You don't think I know what you're doing right now? Are you trying to insult me for what I did, what you two are doing?" And she's like, "Howard, I didn't mean anything about it." He's like, Are you patronizing me? All the nice things that I did for you right now, all 8.5 feet. And 722 pounds of John Goodman is just right up on Mary Elizabeth Winstead at this point, right up on Michelle. And she's like, let me tell you something. You don't have to be down here. He doesn't have to be down here. I'm the one that let you all down here right now. And so you should start showing me some goddamn respect. That's what you should be doing right now, Michelle. And you should be apologizing to me. I'm the one in charge. And when he's doing this, chat, she slowly reaches for the keys. Slowly reaches for his keys, chat, so she knows that she can open the door upstairs. And she's like, You're the one in charge, Howard. And he's like, "And I'm very, very sorry." Okay. And then he sits back down, and it's super fucking awkward again. And he just tries to restart the conversation. "And I gotta stay hydrated." He like downs his orange soda, his peach soda, whatever the hell he's drinking. And he's like, "Gotta stay hydrated down here. Very important to stay hydrated." And he's like tapping on the bottle, and it's one of those things that has a bottle cap. And you need your bottle cap opener, but Michelle has it in her hand. And he looks at her and goes, "What's wrong?" She's like, Nothing. He's like, And he goes to reach for it, chap, but he's like, he's just grabbing man fat. He's just grabbing his love handle. And he's like, Where's my keys?" And then she grabs the bottle and goes, bah, and she bashes it over his head. And he's like, "Ah!" And then, Emmett's like, "Wait, Michelle, wait." And then John Goodman's like, "Nah!" And he fucking flips the family table over. It's an heirloom. And he fucking pushes Emmett over. And Michelle, she's just, she's trying to run up the stairs. She's like, "No, where are you going? Where are you going?" And she opens the first door, slams it shut, locks that door, chat, goes over the next door, and John Goodman's like, "You're gonna kill us all. Don't open the door, Michelle. Don't open the door." But she looks out the window, and it's nighttime now, and she sees there's a car. There's a new car there with its headlights, and she's like, "There's a car out here. What's going on?" Then, bah, we meet the melty lady, and it's this lady who's like, "Open the door. Open the door." And she's like, "Oh my God." And she's like, "There's a woman out here." He's like, "Don't open the door. It's too late for her. Don't do it, Michelle." And she's like, "No, I'm totally fine. You can open the door. It doesn't hurt that bad." There's like fucking chunks of meat is just falling off of her face, chat. She's got these blisters that are just popping and pussing coming out. Just pussing everywhere, chat. So much pus. And she's like, oh my God. And she's like, please help me, help me. And she's like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. She's like, no, open the door. You fucking bitch, open the door. And she starts slamming her head into it, and the blisters like are popping, and more splooge is on the wall, chat, on the window. And then we cut from the melty woman, who she does not let in, chat. And Michelle's back in her room, and she's sitting on the floor looking defeated. Howard eventually walks over, and he's like, Michelle, I want to admit the truth to you, okay? I feel like we might have gotten, off on the wrong foot. I have to admit, I was the one that ran you off the road. Because at one point, chat, she sees the truck that John Goodman was driving, and it has a bunch of red paint on it, and her car had red paint. And so he was the one that ran her off the road, chat, that sideswiped her. And he's like, I have a mistake. I was the one that ran you off the road, and it's because I knew about the attack, and I have to admit, I was driving like a crazy man. And I know I often seem like a really sensible guy, which is so funny. He has no idea what he actually is or what he actually, portrays himself as. But I admit, I made a mistake, and it was an accident, but I was in the wrong. You're the reason why I'm here, and I apologize to you. I'm sorry. I'm very sorry. And it's almost like, okay, well, at least he's trying to get up on the good note. It's like at least he's admitting to his mistakes. And he later comes back, and he has in his hands, he's like, here, these are Megan's clothes. You can wear them. And he have this one shirt which has like a picture of like Paris on it. It says Paris on it. And eventually they go to the living area, the common area, and they start talking about just his daughter Megan. He shows her a picture of her, and he's like, "Oh, Megan, she in those magazines she just carried around for fun, but really she loved books, she loved reading, she inhaled them." And, the one thing she always wanted to do was go to Paris, was to live in Paris. And we had this fun joke that we used to say to each other. I used to ask her, and she's like, what was the joke? And I used to ask her, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, there's a pause, and, Megan would say, French. But then her mother turned her against me, and she moved her to Chicago, and I didn't see her again. And, Michelle's like, oh, I'm sorry. He's like, well, they're gone now. Well, maybe they're still alive, Howard. And he goes, and he's like, I need stitches. And he goes and sits down at the table. And actually it's, again, all 9'7" of John Goodman. All 962 pounds. Sits down at that family heirloom table, chap. And he takes off this Band-Aid. It has big old gash where Megan hit him with the bottle. And he then starts talking about his time in the military and in the Air Force. He was a Navy officer, or he served in the Navy, and he talks about that. And he's like, oh, here, he made his own alcohol. I distilled it myself. And she's like, oh, what is it? It's like, well, technically it's vodka. And he takes a swig, but it's perfectly safe and perfectly clean. She takes a swig. She's like, oh, it's awful. And she's like, oh, I didn't say it was good. I didn't say it tasted good, but it gets the job done. And then he takes another swig, and he puts this fish hook in, puts in the alcohol, and he's like, you're going to have to do this for me. And she's like, I don't know. He's like, well, it's like, well, you did hit me with the bottle, and it'll be very difficult to do it myself. And I know that you're in the fashion based on your purse that I looked through earlier. And she's like, okay. And she starts doing all the stitching, chat, one by one. Eventually, she goes and sits down with Emmett, and they start talking. Emmett starts talking about his life before the event, before being in Howard's basement, and how his life was kind of going nowhere. He's struggling where he was he was a track star. He was an athlete in high school, and he got this scholarship, and he was going to go to this big university. I think it was UT. I think he even mentioned it was the University of Texas, because this takes place in Texas, which is really cool. And he goes like, but then like the day before, he gets really, really intimidated by the idea of going to this school, which he doesn't feel like he's deserving of because he doesn't feel like he's very intelligent. And he's just like, ah. And I just knew that, you know, even though I wanted to, I just knew I wouldn't be as good as all them smart kids. And so I made sure that I wouldn't get on that bus to go to that big old fancy school in Austin. And so I got shit-faced drunk. And I knew I wasn't going to get up that morning. And then I made sure I was shit-faced drunk the next day, so I knew I wouldn't go to that fancy school that other day. And then I just stayed here, and kind of he just feels listless, you know, and he, you know, just doing odd jobs and that kind of thing. But he doesn't feel like his life has any importance. And Michelle's like, well, you're alive. If you did that, you'd probably be dead. And he's like, that's true. And then she starts talking about her life and how she always runs away from everything, whether it be her family, whether it be her boyfriends, whether it be her fiance. And she recalls this one story where she saw this little girl who was with her father, who was being pulled by her father, and how he was pulling her like a little too hard. There was something about the way in which he was walking and how forceful he was. And the little girl couldn't keep up with her dad because she got widow legs, and she trips over. And she remembers seeing him pull her up and fucking backhanding her across the face for making him stumble. And she talks about how I just want to go over there. I want to tell him off. I want to say what a horrible father he was, but I didn't. I just kept my head down and I walked away and I ran away. And that's what I've been doing my entire life. And you know, Emmett says if you were still with your boyfriend, you'd probably be dead. And she goes, yeah. But they both have these lives that have led them to this moment, but they're still not, even though they're alive, they're not happy. They're still not happy about that, chat. After that, we get a montage. You need to have a montage scene, chat, where they're all enjoying each other. Actually, it's kind of fun. It's a fun fucking montage where even fucking Howard gets in on a chat. They're all having a blast. They're listening to music. They're watching movies. They're, you know, doing puzzles, playing board games, chat, starting that Monopoly game. They're making peanut butter fluff sandwiches like fucking Howard and Michelle are like, yeah, peanut butter, jelly, fluffernutter. They're having, oh, it's great. They're having an amazing time, chat, amazing time. Although eventually it's then, and we know, like, time passes on. Like, I get the sense they're there for, I don't know. I'm sure Dan Trachtenberg knows how much time they've been there for. But I'm gonna say like a month. Let's say like a month. They've been in the basement for maybe a month, maybe 2 months or something like that. Eventually, you know, we see Emmett. He's working on this puzzle. It's like a kiddie scuba diving, like in a fishbowl, but there's pieces missing. It's like, can you believe it? The puzzle. We're missing some pieces here, and they're just kind of like, this is just like their lives is what they do. And it's like, oh, this poor kitten, like its eyeball's missing. It's deformed. And he's like, what are you working on? And we see that she's working on she's taking Mega's magazines. And she's like doing post-apocalyptic gear on them. And he's like, oh, that's really cool. But you got to have some chainsaws and machetes and things like that. And she goes, why? Because, I don't know, maybe zombies. You know, that's funny enough. That's the one thing that Howard doesn't think caused this apocalypse. But you should see his theories about alien space worms. He's all into that kind of thing. Sundasm, good to see you. Son, thank you so much for gifting a sub to Crimson. Appreciate that. And welcome to the stream. Hope you're doing very, very well. But then all of a sudden, shit, oh no, something's moving around, shit, something's moving around, and all the lights start flickering and going on and off and off and off, and it feels like there's like a giant vehicle above them. And they're like, Howard, and Howard comes a running, chat, all 10 feet, 1,025 pounds of John Goodman comes waddling in, and he's like, don't worry, they're passing by, and this thing passes by. And John Goodman explains this must be the Phase 2 ground sweeps. And what are you talking about? He's like, well, in warfare, if you want to make sure your opponent is dead, you do a mass bombardment. But now there might be stragglers and survivors. What it could be, I doubt this is the Ruskies now. I doubt it's the Russians. I think this might be alien activity, and they're going out in smaller, groups and trying to pick off the rest of us. It's like, holy shit. And they're like, that's really serious business. But then, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo. Alarm starts going off, Chad. An alarm starts going off, and Jungwon's like, oh, God, no. And they're like, what is it? And it's the air filtration system, Chad. And they go to the back room with all the food and stuff in the shelves, and John Goodman's trying to get this this door down, but he can't. It's above him. He's like, I can't move. There's something blocking it right there. And he's like, well, is that bad? What needs to be done? He's like, if we don't flip the switch for the air filtration system, we're going to run out of breathable air very, very quickly. And they're like, what are we going to do? And he looks at Michelle. He's like, it's your turn, Michelle. And they go to the ventilation, this one ventilation shaft. And he's like, I'm too big and Emmett's too big to fit. You're going to have to go in there. And he hands her a flashlight. He's like, the thing is, though, if you get stuck, we can't get you unstuck. Oh, my God. And so she has to go in there, and she has to flip this switch off, on, or whatever. There's an on, off, right? That'll reset the system, and then the more of the air filtration will come through. And so she starts going through the air ventilation shaft, and they're kind of like coaching her through, go this way, go that way. She comes to an incline shaft. She enters like another room, which is another storage facility with food and things. And she goes to the air filtration unit, and, on, off, boom. Air filtration system starts working again, and she moves this one thing out of the way so she can get down this one, the thing that John Goodman was trying to get up to. But she notices there's another hatch up there, and there's natural light coming through, and there's a ladder. So she climbs up the ladder, chat. And she goes up there, and she sees, like, the clouds and the blue skies and everything. But she notices, like, it looks like the window has, like, scratch marks on it or something. She's like, what is that? And she moves it to the side, and we see it says, the scratch marks spell out 2 words, help me. Help me. And she's like, oh my God. She's like, what? And it's like kind of bloodied at the end. And she goes down the ladder and she steps on, she says, shit. And she picks up an earring, chat. And she looks at the earring. She's like, I've seen these earrings before. And she recognizes the earring that was on Megan's ear in the picture that John Goodman showed her, Chad. Megan, the person that was John Goodman's daughter, who was turned against him and absconded to Chicago with the evil mother, Chad. And she's like, what the hell is this all about? And so she goes back downstairs. And she confronts Emmett, and she's like, listen, did you know Megan, Howard's daughter? And he's like, oh, I never met her. No, I heard that that she left with the mother in Chicago. He's like, I don't think that's Megan. And she's like, what are you talking about? And he's like, this earring, I found it in there. And she goes into John Goodman's, one of the books that he keeps all of his photographs in. She takes a photograph out, and she's like, here, it's the same earring. And Emmett looks at it and he goes, yeah, that's not Megan. And she's like, what are you talking about? He's like, that girl's name is Brittany. She disappeared like 2 years ago. And they're like, holy shit. And you realize, chat, this is like, oh my God, chat. John Goodman, all 1,200 pounds, 10 and a half feet of him, chat, kidnapped this girl, Brittany, brought her down to live in this fucking weird basement thing. To do what? To live out? And we don't even, that's the thing that's so fascinating about this. Like, what did he do? Did he want to live out this romanticized relationship with this girl? Does he have this weird daddy-daughter complex? We don't know. But then another picture falls out, and we see we see Brittany with the shirt that fucking Michelle is wearing, and we see that it's in the basement, and she just looks like this, and John Goodman has his arm around her going, and it's like, oh my God. And Howard's like, what are you guys doing? Like, oh, nothing. We're just happy we got the air filtration system. He's like, yeah, that was some really good teamwork. Good teamwork puts me into a really good mood, a musical mood. And then he goes up to the jukebox, and then, chat, we see John Goodman start to twerk. And listen, John Goodman, 1,235 pounds, 12 feet, 7.5 inches, just start twerking, chat, and them ass cheeks are a-clapping, basically causing little mini earthquakes, chat, as he's doing it. And it's like, oh my God. It's like, this is I don't know about this. This is not a good situation. He's like, well, I'm gonna go and get dinner ready, and he goes up and he's just fucking dancing the entire time, chat. And but Michelle and Emmett, they're like, this is not good. This is not good. And so now they're like, okay, we got to give them an escape plan. And so what they want to do is they want to start making these suits. They want to start making suits out of materials so they can go out there and try to get out of the basement and escape from Howard, chat. But they need supplies, and they start subtly taking all these supplies like scissors and duct tape and things. At one point, they realize that, like, okay, we need a lot of material, and we need something that's really thick and that will be insulated. And so, like, okay, we got to use the shower curtains. But, Howard keeps track of all that. And so, because he does the laundry, which is kind of creepy. So he's dealing with all the dirty undies all the time, chat. And Emmett's like, okay, I'm going to go in there and trick him. And so he walks out and he sees, and it's just interesting there's little details here, chat, where a lot of people assume that John Goodman he just wants to engage in a sexual relationship with Michelle. Maybe that's part of it, or with like this character of Megan Brittany. But he has this weird daddy-daughter complex. Because when Emmett walks in, the movie he's watching is Pretty in Pink. Or maybe, some people assume he's a pedophile. I don't know. I'm still to this day, I'm like, I don't really know what exactly he is. He's fascinating, though. Human the Black Human Thing with the Gifted Sub. When he walks in, Emmett walks in, and he sees, oh, what are you watching? What was this? Pretty in Pink? 16 Candles. And it's like it was Megan's favorite. And he goes, oh, that's cool, man. I'm just came to get some water. He's like, mm-hmm. And he goes to get some water. He's like, hey, Howard, listen, man. I don't, never want to tell you how to run things. You're doing a great job. But I was just thinking, like Megan, she probably touched that air filtration system a lot, right? And he goes, yeah, probably. And he's like, well, I mean, it's probably really concentrated that was on her clothes. And I know we got rid of them, of course, but I mean, she was probably like in the bathroom too, and the shower curtain probably has it. In any case, I don't know. I just want to make sure everyone's safe and not exposed to the air. But you know what you need to do, Howard. And he walks away, and Howard's like, yeah, that's a good idea. And so he gets up and he throws out the shower curtain in this kind of like little storage facility which contains, biohazards and stuff. They eventually fish that shower curtain off, and they start like putting together and forming the suit. They create like a ventilation mask out of it too, chat. But over time they start to do what they need to do and make these suits so they can then escape. And they're trying to come up with a plan to like grab the gun from Howard, but they're still trying to placate him and still like, oh, this family life is fine. And then one of the times they're doing charades at this point. They're doing charades. And it's Emmett's turn, and he's trying to get Howard to guess what he's doing. He's like, okay, I'm something small, and he's like, small, tiny, pygmy, little. That's where he's like, little. He's like, okay, and he's like, and next word. There's 2 words. Chat. Next word. Michelle. And he's like, girl, child, and they're like, what the fuck is child? Baby, pretty princess. And then the buzzer runs out, and he's like, woman, it's little woman. And he goes, little woman. Jesus, try to make it easier next time. And it's like, but the way he looks at Michelle, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, is not as I don't think it's a sexual object. It's he looks at her like a daughter, like a little girl that he needs to pamper and in his mind take care of. It's very odd. It's just like, again, we don't know exactly what he is, what his psychosis is. And then eventually it's like it's his turn, and he's going to be quizzing Emmett. And he takes the card, and he's like, haha. And he gets really close. I'm always watching. Emmett's like, oh, I see what you're doing all the time. Emmett's like, Howard, listen. He's like, I watch you when you're sleeping. And he's like, I'm always aware of what you're doing. He's like, Howard. He's like, I'm always watching. Howard, listen, I'm always watching. And Elizabeth was just like, Santa Claus, you're Santa Claus. And he's like, that's right, Michelle. But it was Emmett's turn, so I'm just gonna keep the point. I'm just gonna keep the point. And they're like, holy shit! And it's like, oh my god, like he knows what they're doing. Eventually, chat, we cut, and it's like how many days later, and we see Emmett and Michelle are kind of still formulating their plan. They got one of the suits together, and what they're gonna do is, like they think like, okay, one person's gonna go out and try to get help, while the other person, holds Howard at gunpoint and makes sure that he doesn't, leave, that they capture him basically. But then all of a sudden, Howard walks in, and he's like, "What are you guys talking about?" And, or that's the thing. Like, they were talking about that, and then that's the thing. Emmett leaves the room. He leaves the room, and then Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Michelle, she's still working on the suit. But then she hears Howard come, and she's like, oh, shit. And she hides the suit and everything. And, she's, like, reading a magazine. He's like, come with me. And she's like, excuse me? He's like, I need you outside in the common room right now. And she's like, oh, sure, Howard, sure. And she follows him. And then Emmett's out there, and he's doing dishes. And he's like, you're on deck. And he's like, oh, okay. And he goes down there. He's like, I need you to open up that cupboard over there. And they open it up, and there's this large blue barrel. And he's like, drag that into my room. And they're like, okay. And they drag this very heavy barrel in. And he opens up the barrel, and it's like this liquid inside. And they're like, Howard, what's going on? He's like, this is sulfuric acid. I worked with this a lot in the Navy in order to launch satellites. How I know so much about the stuff that I know about in regards to these aliens and all this technology. This can melt most material. It can also melt human flesh and bone and cartilage until nothing is left. I want you guys to explain something to me. And they're like, what is it, Howard? And he brings out the materials that they were using. He finds the scissors, and he finds the duct tape roll that's like mostly gone. And he's like, why were you using these things? Why were you using these things? And he puts them in the acid, and they just start melting the acid like fucking immediately. And they're like, Howard, listen. He's like, you're going to tell me the truth right now, or you're both going in this barrel alive. And Emmett's like, Howard, it was me. It was me. And Mary Elizabeth's like, no, Emmett, no. And he's like, it was me. I wanted your gun. I wanted your gun because I wanted to be in control, and I wanted to have authority. I wanted to be like you because Michelle, she looks up to you and she respects you, and I wanted that kind of authority. And I'm sorry, I just, I was planning to take it from you, and I realized that was wrong. I'm so sorry, Howard. And Howard's like, I accept your apology, Emmett. Bang! And he shoots him in the fucking face, and he dies. And then we hear just this ring because it's so enclosed, but, fucking Emmett's head just explodes. His body just falls back down, and Mary Elizabeth's just like, and Howard's like, it's okay now. It's okay. He was going to hurt us, but I stopped him. Now it's just the two of us, as it always should have been. Now we can be a family of two. It's just us now. Shh. No, go. You go into your room, and I'm going to take care of the rest of this stuff. You shouldn't see this. Little girls shouldn't have to see this. And she goes to her room, and she's just in a state of shock. And she's looking at, she has Emmett's wallet. And I like this. This is a nice touch. Because, some people read into this like, oh, she cared about Emmett. I don't know if in a loving way. I kind of looked at it as a brotherly sister kind of relationship where they really, fucking, horrifying circumstances bring people close together. But I feel like she really liked him and respected him. And she keeps his license on her throughout the rest of the movie. She keeps the license. She stares at him constantly. And she puts it in her pocket. And at this point, she's like, I need to get out of here. But then eventually, she's just staring at this thing. She's just staring at 1,000-yard stare. And then Howard comes over, and he's like, well, I've cleaned up, and I've taken care of the nastiness. I thought, since it's been such a stressful day, and now we can do anything we want now, maybe we should have ice cream before dinner. We should have dessert before dinner. And we see that now he's wearing this buttoned-up shirt. He's clean shaven now. Before he had this beard. And I'm like, this is weird. And he's like, which one do you prefer? The cone or the bowl? And she just stares up at him like, you are fucking insane. And he's like, I'll take the cone. Megan preferred the bowl. And he puts the bowl down there. He's like, well, I'm going to go get dinner ready. And at this point, she's like, I have to fucking get out of here. And before he leaves, he's like, we're going to be a really happy family here. We're going to be a really happy family here, Michelle. And then he goes and makes dinner. And she's like, holy shit. She starts finishing the last minute touches on the suit. But then we hear John Goodman a coming, chat. All 2,000 517 pounds, and all 17 and a half feet of him comes a waddling down, Chad. And she's like, holy shit. And so she hides everything. She puts this last thing, she puts the mask in the ventilation shaft. She tries to screw up the grate up in there, and she sits down, and she just almost, she was like in a rush. And he's like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, nothing. I was just about to do some reading. And she's like, okay, the table needs to be set. And she goes, oh, okay. And he's like, all right, I'll see you there in a second. And before he leaves, we see the one screw come out of the ventilation shaft, right out of the grate. And it drops. He goes, what was that? And Megan's like, oh, yeah, it's doing that all the time. I don't know why. And he's like, and he tries to, like, he's so big. He tries to, he unscrews the last of the grate. He's trying to look into it. He's trying to just like, what's going on? Michelle, what's going? And then he sees a part of the suit underneath the bed. And he's like, get up. And she's like, what's wrong, Howard? And he's like, get up! And he grabs her. And she's like, ah! Ah! And he just like rips her hair and he just slams her in the wall and he throws the bed. He's like, ah! Ah! And she fucking takes off running, Chad. She fucking takes off running. He's like, holy shit, holy fucking shit, just trying to get away from him. And eventually she goes into his room where we see the melted, like what he's done, Chad. I can't even describe what he's done to Emmett. I feel like he's either chopped him up or broken him apart, and he's melting what's left of his body inside of this case. And it's just like, it's like horrifying. And she's like, oh, and then she goes over. And then he's like, oh, after everything, and then because now, Howard gets there and he's blocking the entrance. And he's like, after everything I've done for you, I deserve your respect. That's what I deserve. Just, don't you appreciate me? Just give me what I deserve. And she's like, this is what you deserve. And she kicks over the fucking barrel of acid, and he's like, oh! And he falls over, Chad. He's like, oh! And he starts melting in the acid, Chad. It's all over the floor. His fucking feet, all 18 and a half feet, and 16,000 pounds of John Goodman is just melting in the puddle, Chad, becoming a meat man puddle. And you just hear him go, and she takes off running, Chad. The thing is that the rest of the acid starts going everywhere, and it hits the wires, and then boom, the wires spark, and it sets everything on fire inside of the bunker. But she goes back, she grabs the mask, she grabs the suit, chat, and she runs out. But then right before she leaves, like right at the end of the hallway, we see John Goodman just half melted meat man. He looks like a little bit of a cop. Remember that guy from RoboCop, chat? We see the guy's like, hey. That's what John Goodman looks like. And she's like, yeah. And she takes this fucking shelf and smushes John Goodman with it. He's like, nah. And she's running, chat. And she goes through the ventilation shaft. As the whole fucking place is on fire now. But she starts going through the ventilation shaft. But then as she's moving, chat, this fucking knife comes through, like, starts stabbing. It's John Goodman. He's still coming. He's like, Michelle. She's like, oh. And she passes over this one grate, and we see, like, melty face John Goodman. He's like, don't leave me. No, stay with me. And his like hand is all like, it looks like a flipper. His hand looks like a flipper, chat, as he's trying to grab her. It's like, get your fucking hands off me. And she smushes his hand just breaks apart. It's like a big stumpy meat patty. He's like, no. And eventually she climbs out, all the smoke's around her and everything, chat. She puts on the mask and everything. She gets up to the little area where she was before with the sun coming out, the kind of the skylight. She uses this freezing spray that John Goodman was using earlier in the movie to like cool his drinks down. And she freezes this lock, Chet. She freezes this lock until it can shatter it. She keeps freezing it, hits it, freeze, hits it until it shatters. She then busts out of there, and she's finally outside after all this time, chat. And And then she's like, she can't believe what she's seeing. She's like, oh my God. She sees, you know, the fucking sky. She's like, you know, there's you know, cornfields everywhere. And then, you know, she's looking all around, and she sees something. She just, her vision's like, what the fuck? And I don't know, a few hundred yards away, there's a fucking alien spaceship. And she's like, huh? And it's like, what the hell is it? What? What the hell is that? And she's like, I don't have fucking time to think. And she goes over, she runs over to this car, his car. It still works. Keys are in there and everything. She gets in there and rips her fucking suit open. She's like, no. And she starts like fucking taping her suit up. Chap, and then she tapes it up with the duct tape, and she's like, and then she hears birds chirping. She looks up, and there's these flock of birds that fly over her head, and she's like, wait a minute. And she takes off the suit, and she's breathing, and the air is clean. And she's like, oh my God. But she still spots that fucking flying abomination over there, and then she hears this rumbling, and the bunker finally explodes, Chad. Explodes. And, you know, we assume Howard's killed in the explosion. He's finally dead. He became a melting. All 20 feet, 18,000 pounds of John Goodman died down there, Chad. He's finally dead. But it explodes. But this alerts the weird, and I love the design of this because it's biomechanical, Chad. It's similar to a recent movie, but it's this giant biomechanical mass floating in the sky, and it poops out two little balls. And she's like, what the fuck is that? And she has no idea. But because the explosion goes off, it also sets off the car alarm to the melty face lady from earlier in the movie. So it starts going, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, wee woo, wee. And she's like, oh shit. And she takes cover inside of this shed, where we also find the melty face lady's decomposing body. Chat just smells like sweet meat and farts. And she's like, oh my God. And then chat, she hides there as these two, I don't know how to describe them. They're like, it's like if you took an aardvark, an armadillo, and hentai and encased it in a metallic spiky shell. That's what it is. And it's these two, it's this, I don't know what it is. It's like two, I think it's one or two of them. And they're poking around the lady's car going, rah, rah, like doing that and shit. And the thing keeps going on and off, and they're just staying in the area. And she's like, I got to stop the fucking car alarm, because they're coming over to the shed. And she goes into the rotting corpse of the melty face lady who just smells like fart. And she digs deep into that hole, Chad, and she finds it. And she turns it off right as the thing pokes its head into the shed. And she's like, oh, and it finally backs out because it wants to go investigate what that last beep was. She then's like this, that goes over there. She just she sees the house, this house nearby, which must have been Howard's farmhouse, but someone seems to be living inside. All the lights are on. She's like, oh my God. And she bolts out of the shed, and she's like, help. And then all the lights start getting brighter and brighter and brighter. And she realizes, like, those aren't the house lights. What's behind the house is the giant biomechanical flying abomination, and it has tentacles, Chad. And she's like, fuck. And she instantly runs back to Howard's truck, gets in there, she's attacked by the weird armadillo, aardvark, hentai worm thing. It's like, and it like grabs her face, but it rips the mask off. She's like, oh, Jesus, God. She slams the door, but then the giant mechanical abomination grabs, like, oh, that's the other thing too. It spews like toxic gas, and she has to, like, at one point, and then she has the mask on, so she's not susceptible to it. But in any case, it grabs the car and starts trying to vor it, chat, and it has this giant hentai mouth that's going, blah, 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 and she's like, I don't like that. And she realizes, like, I can make this thing explode. That's what I can do. And thankfully, the whiskey saves the day. There's the whiskey bottle that Howard forgot to grab. She takes that, she makes a Molotov cocktail and goes, God, and she yeets it into the thing's mouth, and it's like, oh, and it explodes. Shit explodes in the car. She's like, oh, as the truck falls back down, slams on the ground, and the creature dies. It dies. Eventually, she goes into the other car. I believe it's the lady's car. She takes her keys, Chad, which are covered in human feces, and she drives. But then as she's driving, Chad, down the highway, this is so funny. Actually, before she leaves, she drives out of Howard's driveway, hits the mailbox, chat, and she goes off. She just screeches down the road, and the camera pans over, and the address on Howard's mailbox is 10 Cloverfield Lane. Boom! There's the fucking movie title, chat. She then continues down the highway. Then the radio starts coming on, and it's this woman. It's this announcer, and she's saying, "Listen, if you need help right now, go to I forget what they mentioned. I think it's like Baton Rouge or something like that, and like in Louisiana, head to Baton Rouge." And you'll get a medical facility. However, if you're near Houston, we need people with medical expertise and combat training. We need them. We pushed back the alien invaders. We've taken back the East Coast, but the Southern Coast is still under heavy fire from them. We need your help. We need people. And she stops because she's heading to Baton Rouge, but she stops and she turns the car around. She heads right to fucking Houston, chat, because she's going to stop those alien bastards because she's a fucking fighter and she's going to kick that. She beat 22.5-foot John Goodman, all 82 tons of him, chat, and she, you know she can handle some alien shit. She just blew up a biomechanical hentai ship, and then she careens down the highway towards Houston, chat. We see this thunderbolt, we see this lightning light up the night sky, where we see this giant, massive fucking hentai biomechanical mothership just going, and then boom, chat, cut to black, 10 Cloverfield Lane, chat, and that is my scene by scene breakdown to 10 Cloverfield Lane. I love this movie, chat. A lot of people criticize the ending of the aliens, but like I said, her story is a much smaller story and a much grander story, chat, and I love it. The acting on display, the writing, the use of the environment, chat, the craftsmanship when it comes to the tension. This is one of my favorite movies of the last decade, chat. This to me is the very definition of a better than sex. So the giant monster was Roseanne. That would have been hilarious if it was Roseanne. Oh, but I hope you enjoyed it.